Should we start?
I think so.
Hi, welcome everyone. I am very happy to be here, hosted by Piera Ravnikar of Ravnikar Gallery Space on the occasion of Jure Kastelic's show, It's Okay Until It's Not. Here I am reporting from Maribor, from my office with the credible bookcase behind me. I think it's quite credible. I don't know if you've seen on Twitter, there is a hashtag credible bookcase where they check out credible bookcases of people who are tuning into Zoom and whether or not they've manipulated with their background or not. So I'm here at the office at my library of the UGM, Maribor Art Gallery, where I work. Today, Jure and I will do a sort of a reprise of our talk that we did a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago now. And it was a really nice flow that we had, and we'll try to repeat this. Jure, I think, you know, there are two types of artists, ones that like to talk about their work and ones that don't. And Jure is certainly the first kind, one that likes or even feels perhaps that his work demands to be talked about by him, and he claims that he is evangelizing Bitcoin through his work. So it's kind of a, maybe even a kind of a religious kind of painting that he does. And I'd just like to start first, perhaps with the kind of the context, how we came about this work. We were invited by Piera to do this exhibition, and Jure and I just met a couple of days before all hell broke loose in London.
This is the last party.
The last party, yeah, the last party. We are back at parties now in Slovenia. Yeah, it was really, and it was very fascinating then, and also to think back on it, that how we discussed the thing, you know, you know, I think Jure is quite prone to catastrophic thinking, and he was basically, you know, telling it as it happens soon after what will happen. So, and this is also the theme, or the, you know, the title refers to this thing of something being okay until it's not, and you know what happens between something being okay and suddenly it's not being okay. And when we were also discussing what to do with the exhibition with these new found times, we first decided that we would like to do the exhibition online in kind of a simulated space of a Ravnikar Gallery Space. And then as things, you know, progressed and changed, sometimes very overnight, you know, things could reopen in Slovenia, while Jure is still in London, where they are essentially on lockdown. We kind of moved the exhibition halfway in one direction, you know, one leg in real space, one leg in virtual space. So we have the first part, which is, it's okay, you know, this kind of good part. At Piera's, it's a series of 33 works called, or Jure describes them as future memories. And then we have 4 large works on canvases, which are placed in a virtual space of Ravnikar Gallery Space. But if we look at it later, it's kind of mirroring the Piera's space. So it's, you know, it's kind of double, it's kind of like, what's the show? Stranger Things, when it's upside down world, you know, one world that it's here and one world that we kind of have a sense is there and it's kind of threatening in some way. When we first, you know, started talking with Jure 4 weeks ago, a month ago, you know, I wanted to ask him, he came up with the title, It's Okay Until It's Not. And I wanted to ask him, you know, how does this reflect his works? And he immediately began talking about one work in particular, which is a painting of Dr. Help me,
Dr. Pangloss.
Pangloss. And maybe you can bring it up, the image, that we know what to talk about, that we know what we are talking about. And maybe you can tell us the story of Dr. Pangloss and how it influenced you and also your work, and when did you, because it's very kind of, it seems very relevant to today, but you started this thinking about him a while ago.
Yeah, so basically the way I started was that I started reading more and more about Dr. Pangloss on Twitter, actually, and people describing the world as being Panglossian. And then I started looking what that actually means. And I found out that this character, Dr. Pangloss, comes from a story called Candide by Voltaire. And basically this character, Dr. Pangloss, is inside as like a like a side character. It's not one of the main ones. But why is it so important is because this is a person, this character is so optimistic. He's overly, excessively optimistic and always sees just good things in anything that is happening around him. So for example, within the story, there is like a really bad scene where most of the crew dies, and Dr. Pangloss, finds a reason that this is just good, that they're dead, that you always have to see positive side of whatever happens. And someone on Twitter made a comment that Steven Pinker, which is one of the authors that I quite liked before this, he was describing Steven Pinker as one of the neo-Panglossian authors. So Steven Pinker is known for really thick books about history and how everything that we have so far, so pre-corona, let's talk about the world pre-corona, is that whatever we had, it's the best of all the worlds, and there's no way that we can see the past and say that we don't live at the best point in the history of humanity. So this view of these authors, they only have good things to say about any sort of situation, caught my attention, because I saw that people are describing the stock markets, the situation with jobs, with unemployment being at record low. I thought, okay, there's something wrong, because we can't always just live in the best of times. There must be someone else who is saying what's the reason for all of this. So yes, we do live in really good times, but they can end quite quickly, and these authors don't really have the capacity to say, yeah, it's been good so far for some people, but in general it has been quite shit. And then Corona happened, so I thought, okay, this is quite evidential that people are not really thinking straight if they say everything is fine, everything is good. So we need to reassess it. And it's all these sort of authorities, like Steven Pinker is one of the main professor at Harvard University, and he teaches rationality, which is kind of ironic as well. And so it really just got...
But Jure, it's something that you also subscribed to at some point, maybe, that you thought that his writing was something that was relevant to you or that you believed in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I read this thick book, which is called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And it's basically a book that goes through the whole history of humanity, of a history of violence and humanity. And the conclusion of this book is that people were much more violent, people were much more prone to disease, much more under influences that weren't under their control and therefore they died younger, they had worse lives, such, everything in relative terms. And it's always nice to read this sort of books that affirm your position that if you live right now, you live the best possible life. But it's an illusion.
It's reassuring. No, it's reassuring. Yeah.
It's reassuring, but it's more like horoscope. It doesn't mean anything because everything good also stops being, which is the point of this show as well.
Yeah, and there is another painting in this online simulated exhibition that relates quite strongly to this, which is the kind of the goat. Yeah. And it's you could say that it's kind of an illustration even of the title. And I don't know, maybe if you can put it a bit, the close up. I don't know if it's very clear. I didn't see it at first, but essentially it's a photograph or based on a photograph of a goat that has this very long horn that went around, grew, and it was okay until it was not, when it pierced the head and went into the brain and essentially killed the animal. Yeah.
And when I saw this photograph online, which is quite a known photograph anyway, it appears every now and then on Reddit or on Twitter or on Instagram, whatever. And I always thought that it's a really violent, but also just completely weird photograph. And because I was already thinking about Dr. Pangloss and this characterization of people as being Panglossian, always seeing only good in things and never really reflecting on things properly in depth, I thought this is a great analogy as one photograph of what we do believe is happening. It's okay, but it's suddenly just not anymore. And accidentally, this happened, now while we were talking about this exhibition and having this exhibition, and we were also affected by Corona, by not shipping the big works, by me not coming to the opening, by thinking of a hybrid solution, which is online and offline exhibition. The fact that we're doing it over Zoom now and not at the gallery before the opening is kind of telling as well. It's all kind of incorporated in this whole idea of it's okay, but it's not anymore.
Yeah. And if we spoke before about this kind of reassuring texts that are reassuring, yes, but not very practical or not realistic or don't reflect what actually happens, then you also spoke to me about something called the repugnant conclusion. Yeah. And if you can maybe talk a bit more about that. What is that?
Yeah, so that's a tough one because there was a whole Nobel Prize in 2017 about it. So what I'm going to say, I'm probably going to massacre it. But the basic idea is that with...
We are losing you. I don't know what's happening. Maybe you can readjust the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so while I was reading about this Dr. Pangloss, I also wanted something more, something that I can understand. Why is it good to look at the history and think that everything's bad or everything's good in any case? So I needed some sort of background to think, is it always good or is it always just bad? And should we be optimists or should we just be pessimistic about the future and our situation anywhere? So repugnant conclusion is something where it's something that world governments are dealing with when the population grows. So let's say that we have 10 million people in the world and they're all supremely happy. And then what happens with happiness when you have the amount of population? So let's say you have 20 million and you just say, oh yeah, everyone is just going to be a little bit less happy, but it's going to be more people just a little bit less happy. So the repugnant conclusion is basically a conclusion that follows this logic. The bigger the population, just tiny bit smaller is the amount of total happiness. Therefore, if you have 50 billion people, everyone is just going to have life worth living and no happiness at all. So you go from A, which is absolute happiness of everyone, but a tiny amount, like a small population. Then you have B, which is double the amount of population, but a tiny bit less of happiness, leads us to Z, which is 50 billion people. Happiness is just worth living.
Yeah.
This is essentially.
Yeah, but the problem with this conclusion is that you say that people are reluctant to accept it, that they don't want, that individual people cannot, give up a little bit of their happiness in order for more other people to also have a kind of a...
Yeah. I mean, to this argument, to this repugnant conclusion thesis, there is no real solution, but our governments and everyone is working towards accepting as many people as possible for the price of a general happiness dropping just a little bit. And the conclusion that these researchers made are making is the fact that we will end up just with lives worth living, and we're not going to be talking about maximum amount of happiness. Okay. This is not something that I would talk about in like day-to-day examples of certain group of people or anything like that. It's just a generalization of what humanity tends to do.
Yeah, and the pursuit of happiness is something that also comes across your exhibition, perhaps in the second part, which is the It's Okay part, when you paint something that you call future memories, and it's something that you aspire to. You say, and it's time spent with your girlfriend Marta. Hello, Marta. With your family, with your friends, on holidays, and kind of free time, leisure time, and they are displayed here, actually at Piera's space on Prešernova, so you can go see it. And you claim that this is something that you want to achieve, and that you have some sort of ideas of how you would like to achieve that, or how you will achieve that. And can you speak about that?
Yeah, so I like to pack this future memories as the answer of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So before that, I'd like to talk about my obsession with Bitcoin and why I'm doing that. And then as the answer of why I'm interested in monetary systems, I offer these memories. And so basically I started following the whole Bitcoin community and everything that's been happening with cryptocurrencies from end of 2015, start of 2016, and then started also painting about it maybe 6 months afterwards, when I saw that the ideas that the community believes in and the ideas that the open source community has in order to develop this project is something that I can align myself with as well. And so through things, I wanted to talk about Bitcoin and the benefits that you get as an individual by opting out of an established monetary system that we have with fiat currencies like dollar, euro, GBP, and opt into something else that is not in control of anyone, that is completely decent, and the value is obviously completely volatile. And this brings very different topics into my research, from monetary systems, as I mentioned before, but then also the whole unsexed of money itself, because questioning what is money. It's not like how much do you have it and is it green or is it, you know, plastic notes or whatever, but what is the governance behind it? What is the, who is issuing this money? What is backing the value that we all believe in it? So I started working on paintings that are really influenced by Bitcoin in general. And then I went to do a residency, like a short one at the Bludovic collection in, it's gonna be a whole year and a half now since then. And I had questions like, but why are you interested in this? And why do you wanna work with topics that are completely ridiculous to kind of portray on a canvas on a 2D plane? So I started thinking, well, I'm interested in Bitcoin because of my own interest in my future. You know, I'm 28. I live in London. I'm renting. I'm not thinking about having my own house. I'm not thinking about family. I'm not thinking about a lot of different things that I'd be able to in a normal society. So after seeing some benefits about Bitcoin as a savings tool, I saw I just wanted to say that all these memories that I have that I already made, I also want to extend them in the future. So I started by taking photographs on my own phone, you know, going places with my girlfriend, visiting my family, hanging out, and doing everything that a normal person is doing, but then trying to kind of paint them in a way that they would be the holders for my future memories. So I do want to go on a boat again. I do want to go canoeing. I do want to go to Tenerife on the seaside on the sun. So all of these that you see here on the walls are basically exactly that. My memories that I want to extend them into the future and relive them.
Okay, if we can go back maybe to the goat, or maybe to the badger, honey badger. Maybe it's a good place to illustrate that you have a particular technique of achieving these paintings, and they include found images from the internet, let's say, or your own images, as you've said, photographs from your phone, from holidays, and so on. And then you use artificial intelligence to merge them with a preferred style, something that you like. And can you explain this a bit more, and also say why this is something that you do?
Yeah, so for example, before you saw Future Memories, and that's the first time that I basically use this AI technique, which is helping me to rush through as many works as possible. So they're all these Future Memories, all A3, and I use this technique of AI. It's like it's basically an algorithm that is using neural networks in order to recognize one picture, and then I give it a style picture, picks up the style and applies it onto the source image. So for example, in this case with the honey badger, I found a picture of a badger on his feet trying to reach out for something. And then I found another picture online where there was a beehive, like an artificial one, just a box on a tree. And then I combined it in Photoshop, and that thing was my source image that AI painted on top of it. I can show you an example.
Okay.
So, for example, in the middle is a, whoops. In the middle is a photograph from from one of my trips with my girlfriend Marta. This is the source image. On the right side is a style image. So into this image in order to paint the one, and the left one is the AI recognizing what's in this picture and applying the colors of the right picture.
I think if you move your hands too much across your keyboard or your screen, we lose you a bit. So yeah.
Yeah, you understand. So the middle one is the source one, the right one is the style, and the left one is the final sketch, a digital sketch. And what comes out of this process is then this.
Can we see some more examples?
Yeah. So the middle one is a source one, the right one is the style, and applies it. And left one is my digital sketch, and this is the final result.
And how do you transfer it then from the digital sketch to the actual painted surface?
Well, the left side, so the AI result just gives me a sketch that I work on. So as anyone is using sketches, I use it, look at it, and then try to paint it.
Okay, great.
And I also use all these kinds of similar colors in order then to create a whole wall of the same sort of colors and textures, like more like a uniform style. And then I remember we spoke about the cheerleader effect.
Yeah, you can cheerleader effect. Maybe we can look at the photographs all together, or I mean the paintings, drawings all together.
Yeah, for example.
But Jure, we don't really, we're kind of losing you, or not losing you, but you kind of have a robotic kind of voice.
Oh, really?
Maybe, is Marta on mute? Maybe Marta has to go on mute.
I am on mute then.
No, you're not on mute because I can hear you.
You can hear me from Jure's computer.
Ah, sorry. Okay. Okay, I don't know. But I can hear you all right. Anyway.
Okay. Maybe just stop.
It's fine. It's fine.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So yeah, like, what's a cheerleader effect? So if you have paintings all together, and if they're uniform in sort of style and color, they're gonna look better than singular paintings, and like that's kind of like a trick that I wanted to use as this grid essentially.
But it's interesting that you use a lot of tricks. Let's say that you use AI to help you make 100 sketches a day instead of 2 sketches a day, and you use this cheerleader effect trick to kind of trick the audience that maybe your work is better than, you know, the sum of the work is better than individual pieces, but you still have this, I don't know if you would call it a need or an interest to still paint it physically. You know, where does this come from?
It's like, you know, it's like isolating one memory and thinking about that memory. It's so nice and sweet, but actually thinking about all of your memories better than just that one. So that's my thinking behind it. That's why it's grouped together, and it's kind of like a trick. So the cheerleader effect makes the whole look better, but the singular pieces are not as important.
Okay. You recently had an exhibition at the White Crypt in London, and you had some previous exhibitions in Bristol. Is that right?
Brighton.
Brighton, sorry, in Brighton. Sorry if anyone's from Brighton or Bristol. And you also worked in a commercial gallery. And would you say that you have an audience or a buyer of your work, and how would you describe that buyer?
At the beginning, when I started with all this crypto stuff, I always thought that my audience and my clients, let's say, would be people that are interested into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, because the community is quite large by now, and there's a lot of kind of memes about Bitcoin and monetary systems and all kinds of stuff. But at the same, well, I still have that in my mind when I work on paintings, because I'm taking symbols and themes out of Bitcoin folklore, let's say, and people that understand, well, people that are from that community would understand those symbols and themes much quicker than, let's say, a no coiner, which is someone that has no Bitcoin or in Bitcoin. Therefore, I do these sort of talks in order to make them coiners and not no coiners.
So your one of the results of this talk, you hope that we invest in some Bitcoins.
I think, well, you have to decide. I'm just telling you how it benefited me so far, and I hope that more people see the benefits and try to do the same, or something similar.
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think, you know, sometimes artists, when there is sometimes something outside of their work, well, this is still part of your work, but outside of their, let's say, physical work, get annoyed by being asked the same question again and again about, you know, something that is maybe a story or you know, a context about their work, but you seem to be very keen or even insisting that you want to have these talks and preach about Bitcoin. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of contemporary artists that find their one thing and just repeat it for the rest of their career. Sometimes even the same thing all the time, you know, like just stripes or just circles or, you know, something as banal as that. And what I'm interested in is, like, in general understanding of money, because I haven't been taught about it in school, how money works, what it is, who makes it, and why. So that, I think, is just like a never-ending story that you can keep reading and researching. It's like a rabbit hole. You fall in and you never come out because you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing that, and I don't think I'm anywhere closer to say I'm done with this topic and I'm done with everything, because the longer I'm doing it, the more topical it seems. You know, in 2016 or 17, when everyone was speculating on Bitcoin and shitcoins and altcoins and whatever, it wasn't that topical to have money that is under no one's control. While now, where Euro and USD and GBP are not collapsing, but they are deflating, which on a longer term we will see as inflation, and on a longer term we will see it also in Western world, its effects. But in countries like Argentina and Venezuela and Turkey, you know, even in Hong Kong now, in America, if people don't have access to ATMs, or if they have nationally imposed sanctions or let's say rules and laws not to withdraw their own money from their own bank, why would they trust a system like that? So I think that's more topical than ever and relevant for everyone.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. But if we go back to the Bitcoin folklore and characters and stories, maybe we can look at one of the paintings and you can tell us about that some more.
Yeah, so this honey badger is the most apparent one. So the research for this one comes from a YouTube video, which is, if you type in honey badger and it's the first hit, it's a honey badger that is fighting with snakes and and lions and all kinds of animals, and you know, it almost gets killed. It's an animal that is really ferocious and attacks anything that is alive, and goes against everything. While you watch it, you think, okay, this poor thing is gonna die, or it's gonna get killed by one of the animals around, but actually it just walks away like it doesn't give a fuck. So that video came out before 2010, and then Bitcoin was invented in 2009. In 10, 11, the community started forming, and one of the biggest influencers at the time was called Roger Ver, and he saw the video, this viral video of the honey badger, and thought, okay, this is an energy that Bitcoin has. The longer it gets attacked, the more ferocious the attacks are. It seems like it just survives and becomes better. It becomes the opposite of fragile. It becomes anti-fragile. So when Roger Ver saw this video, he said, okay, Bitcoin is the honey badger of money. So what he did was he bought a billboard somewhere in California on the highway and just put a honey badger on it and wrote underneath, Bitcoin is the honey badger of money. And then everyone that is into Bitcoin, you automatically recognize badger as the animal, like as a mascot of it, because it's kind of emits this energy of against the system, and whatever tries to attack it, those attacks actually make it better. And this is what I really aspire to be as well at times like this, to bounce back up and become better by the situation all put in.
Okay. Jure, can you live from your art?
Ish, yeah.
But is this something that you would like to do?
Yeah, so last July 2019, I quit my job. That was a full-time job in a commercial art gallery, and my plan was to have at least some money on the side and try out to be a professional artist. And since then, I didn't really have to dig into that money and just keep adding, essentially. And with art, half of that income is from art, yeah. So yeah, I am 100% working for myself, essentially. That's what I wanted, and that's what I achieved, yeah.
And what's next for Jure Kastelic?
To show as much as possible, to make my production even faster, dig deeper into my research. I'm reading a lot about alchemy right now, because my thesis is that Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, is the first successful alchemist. So we know that alchemy was a science that wanted to transmute lead into gold, and they've been trying to do that, you know, for a long time in history. And accidentally, by doing all those experiments, they made science what it is science. So I'm thinking a lot about alchemy as some sort of driver or fringe sciences or fringe kind of ideas about money that could lead into some you know, decentralized projects like Bitcoin that can help everyone. Yeah, that's what I'm into right now.
Okay, and as we mentioned at the start, you know, the exhibition is kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the lockdown, And so seems to be London at the moment, that essentially everyone is on lockdown, but a lot of people are in the streets nonetheless. Can you give us a little report from the ground?
Well, I live in Peckham here, and on the street you couldn't really see much difference because it's a highway. I mean, it's a high street. People are more aware of what's going on. They wear masks, but it's still quite free, I would say. It's really hard to get around. I can't get home, for example. Or if I wanted to go, it would be supremely expensive, like £1,000 and 4 flights to get to Slovenia. So that's kind of sad. That's different. And also on the way back, if I ever am to go to Slovenia for the summer, if I go back to London, I'll have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks and upload, the governmental app to track me. And if they see that I'm out of my allowed address, they can find me, which is it's wrong as well. So I don't know. I wish we would be in the same situation as in Slovenia, where everywhere you go, you have a car, you don't really have to use public transport if you don't have to. Yeah, I wish it would be like that.
And is there one thing that you've learned about yourself from the coronavirus situation? I can share one thing with you first. And I have learned that I am the kind of person that did go and buy the toilet paper rolls, at the opportune moment. So this is what I've learned about myself. I'm not sure if I'm too happy about it, but I did go look around and grab the thing and bought it. So, and have you learned something about yourself during this time?
Yeah, I don't trust anyone. It's like, we at the end of January we were told one thing by World Health Organization that masks are bad, the masks are good. Now they came out with this new scandal that hydroxy something, that cure, that drug that they basically ended the research. It's actually that anti-malaria drug that's actually good. So, like, World Health Organization is not to be trusted. Our government here is not to be trusted because they wanted, what was it called? Herd immunity. That was scary. Then in Slovenia is another situation with the government that kind of goes against the people, but with the people, but then takes all the money. They are opportunists about the situation. So what I learned is just don't trust, verify. Like I'm reading constantly now, and maybe it's getting a bit too much, but it's the only way you can have a reasonable response to this.
How has this time, my last question, how has this time affected your art making, both in terms of content, but also in terms of producing art physically?
Well, me physically, I don't have a studio. There is an external studio, so I work where I live, which is a big advantage in pandemics like this, but it's a big disadvantage when you have to live with someone else and you're in a way the whole time. But my girlfriend is really understanding, so I'm more, what'd you say? I just work a lot more. I'm at home, I cook, I sleep, I paint, that's all I do. And in terms of topics, I think after working on Bitcoin and these sort of things for 3 years now, I kind of see that it's still very relevant and very topical, and people don't actually think what's money. So I just want to work about that and like maybe expand further than just Bitcoin, but then kind of leads into that way so I can still talk about it.
Okay. I would like to open the floor for questions. If anyone has questions, please, you know, just pose it.
How do we do that? I don't understand.
I think people just, you know, unmute themselves and ask the question.
Yeah.
If not, if there aren't any questions, you can come up with the questions and ask. Maybe I would like to ask Piera, if not to put her on blast if she doesn't want to, but what's the experience? Because neither I or Jure have been to the exhibition. How was the first week of the exhibition? Any responses that you're getting? I'm getting all great responses from people that have seen it. Yeah.
Hey Jure, the W Jure, thank you. Yeah, response is amazing. Lots of people visiting. We are not open all day because we changed some opening hours, but we operate by appointment. So lots of phone calls, lots of meetups. So yeah, we try to explain to people that we have two shows, online and offline. Yeah, we finish on Friday, so I think it's going to be quite more interest, I would say. So yeah, looking forward. Thank you very much to both, you know, doing this amazing work, amazing job, and especially being so to the last minute, so we kind of managed to put everything on time, because, you know, we were all in the lockdown. No one knew what's happening or what's going to happen tomorrow or on Wednesday. So I think was a good run for us all. So happy that Jure and the other Jure, that you had the opportunity to have the last show at the Ravnikar Gallery Space in Prešernova, which, you know, we didn't know, but it's, I think, I take it as an honor. So to have the last show with you guys, and yeah, having the last group one next week. So, and then we go new ways, opening some new chapters. So yeah, the show is not finished yet, so let's see. I mean, Jure didn't mention that we sold the work, the painting, actually, that you guys talked about. Now I forgot the
Honey
title
Badger,
of it.
Or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's going in a good, you know, in good environment. So let's see if something else opens as well. So good that you're gonna be part of some Slovene collection.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other questions, anyone?
There's
we have a question written, yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to answer? Shall I read it out? I'll read it out for the recording. Sorry if you've already talked about this, but I wanted to ask about the choice of medium of painting. I know your reasoning for this, more or less, from previous talks, but I'm curious if you are also looking to expand beyond painting now. This is a fan of Jure's who follows his talks around.
He's a good friend of mine, Rainis. Thanks, Rainis. At the moment, in the situation that I am, that I have to work where I live, I don't want to experiment with materials yet, because I don't want to use something toxic that later I need to be in the same living room where I paint. But it's you know, as soon as my situation with the studio, or, you know, maybe the country, maybe the city changes, then I'm definitely, I'll definitely try to expand and experiment with materials that are maybe a bit more toxic than acrylic paint, and maybe look into, well, I really like bookmaking. I made a book for my last show. I was thinking about making another one for this show, but obviously we had a lot of problems with shipping and logistics in general. So that would just be an extra thing. But maybe in the future, I think in the future I'm going to continue writing that I really enjoy, and maybe you're saying performances. No, definitely not performances. Performances like this, you know.
Yeah, this like lecture kind of talk.
Yeah, and also, you know, if anyone has questions about like the actual technology, I really like to talk about that sort of stuff, because every now and then there are people on Instagram that have like a trigger against Bitcoin, and they see it as like you know, a toxic thing to talk about money while everything is happening. And so I like to get into those debates if anyone tries, and you know, maybe I'm going to change my mind in the future about Bitcoin. What if it's all a scam? Maybe it is. I don't know. It works for me so far. So yeah, I'm always open for changing my mind as well.
Okay, let it be known that today Windisch said informants. This is for the recording, and I have a last question. If anyone else is done.
I have sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead today.
Yes, I have one question. I'm sorry. I hope I will not be too provocative, but I was so wondering throughout your talk. Well done. Congratulations for the show. First, you know, really well done. Love it, Jure. Great, both Jures. But I was thinking, like, you said a few really interesting things. And I know we know each other. We had discussions about Bitcoin a lot, you know, and this form of potentially thinking about art as a derivative rather than, you know, something that kind of commodifies itself to a certain point, like, for example, Bitcoin. In a way, this, you said, trust no one, you know, like, you know, what is money? Like, I don't trust any money that is under anyone's actual control. When you have Bitcoin, you have this idea of purity, of distributed system, of joint community control over infrastructure. But then, you know, having trust nobody, having nothing under control, thinking about this concept and pursuit of happiness in the long term, what do you think the vision of the world is going to end up being? You know, doesn't capitalism, that it's failing in its sense, you know, now just reasserts itself in its complete purity of free market, and that's it, you know? And where is art in this place? You know, this is what I was actually thinking, you know, where does art or artistic expression actually comes into play, you know? Sorry, that's my question.
Yeah. No, I understand. And I think we had, like, I think we spoke about it before about this, that I'm not saying that don't trust anything or anyone. Trust those that you want, right? Like, I'm fine with trusting a doctor or a dentist and my family and friends and whatever, you know, like that is not the question. When I say don't trust, verify, is when you're getting some sort of guidance against for your own health with, like, World Health Organization or herd immunity with the government. It's the authority is crumbling, and in my view, I don't trust it. So what that means in general for, like, you know, for capitalism or for European Union, it depends. If people are going to get pissed off enough and try to verify themselves, then there's definitely going to be a change. And if people are not prepared to, you know, spend some time and think, what is money, or why am I trusting this authority or that authority, then it's just going to be a status quo where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, which is a sad reality of, like, the status quo.
Yeah, I don't have a follow. That's great. Yeah, thank you. There's just one thing, like, would then art in this case, for example, be a certain form of disruption, you know,
right,
or certain ability to destabilize the status quo, or potentially put awareness or point out the system, or just comply with the system to, for example, we are selling the art, you know, there's a certain kind of idea of networked concept when it comes to art sales, you know. So it's kind of like goes hand in hand, while at the same time is disrupting. So that's like, where's the role here, you know? For example, like, I think Rain is put it quite funny in the chat. Certainly don't trust the artist, you know.
Exactly.
On to that, that's a great follow-up question, you know.
Yeah, I mean, with art, it's like, I mean, anyway, the art market is based on the name and not the actual content. So, I mean, does it have to crumble even further for us to see that it's kind of ridiculous? And the fact that, you know, there was a banana in a booth by Catalan just before all this crap has been happening, and if you see that as like a peak hyper turbo capitalism, it's like the correct way of doing art, because it just reflects what we are. We just buy, like you put a banana on the wall and you can sell it for 70,000. Well, that is the state of contemporary art then, in some cases, you know. So if it crumbles, I don't care. But I just want to do things and talk about things that are of actual value to a wider audience, and not just to the person that buys the artwork from me, if they do. But, you know, I don't know. I don't actually know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, great, thank you. That's it for me, Jure Kirbiš. The
Hello.
moderator.
Hi, Jure. Sorry.
Hey, man.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
I do, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think okay. I'm afraid your camera froze anyway. I'm Kare. And apologies that I came late from the Zoom. I just saw this one I'm scrolling through my Instagram stories. I saw it from Marta.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known Marta. Actually, it's quite weird. I've read about Marta because of who her boss is, Werner. It's Rodolph, and I've known Rodolph's name because of who his late father-in-law is, Lord Snowdon. But anyway, I'm from the Philippines, and also here, like from the rest of the world, we're also in lockdown, and right now the time here is already midnight, and it just happened to pass by here. And I came across Jure's work because of it. Marta shared it on her Instagram, the ones with the red landscape, and it's quite striking to me. And my question is about since artists right now have to close their galleries because of the pandemic, and they have to go to the online viewing. Do you think most of casual art goers are into this kind of adjustment? Is the industry ready to have to scale down art fairs? I go here in the Philippines. We have an art fair. It's held every February. I wasn't able to go a few months ago because of there was already the situation of the COVID is already rising, and I quite feared about my safety back then. But last year I was able. My friend invited me to go to the art fair in Manila.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, well, if galleries that are currently going through a huge change, they actually are going to be the ones benefiting and taking a larger market in the future. And galleries that only believe in analog way of presenting works and going physically to art fairs, and, you know, maybe the biggest technological advance that they made is to communicate over emails, and, you know, not utilizing anything else. Those are the ones that might be losing in the future. I can see that. And also I can see that there's more online shows that are happening. I'm in a show by the Museum of Modern Art in Ljubljana in Slovenia. They're doing an online show as a response to Corona. And I was in another one that was basically like virtual reality gallery where you could walk through like in some sort of video game. And if we won't be able to fly in the future, or if it's going to be super expensive or restrictive, I don't think that there's going to be this sort of like art fairs movements from London to Hong Kong to, you know, Chicago and New York all the time around the clock, whole year around, selling, because all those galleries are already selling just through JPEGs in PDFs. So I don't know if it's going to be worth it to actually spend all that money and time and resources for physical shows. I'm not saying that all of them are going to go down or whatever, but there's going to be an effect on the art world as such, I would guess.
Yeah, I'd miss a lot of art, going to art galleries. I'm a history major, and I go to museums. I make it a point when I travel in different countries that I go to every museum, and it's such a the experience is different. Instead of just reading books.
Yeah,
or
no, I
different
absolutely agree. Like it's sad that we have to think about moving galleries and museums online in order to see the art, you know, online. But that's the sad reality. And if it's, you know, art is still a luxury industry and is going to be one of the last ones to show the results of this whole crisis. I mean, for me, I can show online, I can have, you know, exhibitions online in physical world, I can speak with people on Zoom. I'm not that affected by it.
All right.
Reini says, a side note, it feels to me that the galleries that have had to now adjust and go more interactive online has actually made things much more transparent. For example, much more behind the scenes content and things such as prices made public, etc. feels really interesting.
Yeah, I have all my prices online on my website since the start of Corona now.
So the work that you sold in this double exhibition, you sold the work that was only visible online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on this wall 2 days ago.
And is it now on the way to the collector already?
It's getting packed. Yeah, it's gonna go to Slovenia. Yeah, early next week, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. On this note, I would like to thank Piera again and Jure, of course, for involving me in this project. I'm also very proud that we are part of the final. It's kind of a bittersweet pride of being part of the last exhibition in this space, the solo exhibition in this space. But I have to excuse myself because I, on the other hand, am going to an exhibition opening right now. And I'm very happy that I can do that. So thank you everyone for being, and I give the last word to Jure.
Yeah, if you want to continue the conversation, just you know, get in touch on Instagram or my email or my website, wherever. If you want to know about Bitcoin, don't hesitate either. And yeah, don't trust, verify. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.